And welcome back. Joining us now are Karen Tumulty, the political reporter for the Washington Post, Todd Spangler, who is the Washington correspondent for the Detroit Free Press, and our own chief White House correspondent, Norah O'Donnell, and her partner is the dynamic duo here, political director John Dickerson. John, you just heard Rick Santorum. What do you make of it?
Not backing down. And that's what a lot of these conservative voters like about Rick Santorum. You notice at the end he said he's happy to make news about issues of the day that that aren't talked about very much. And that's what he's pitching. I'm thinking about these issues, social issues, all the time, and they get pushed to the side, but I'm the one who's going to stand firm and say these things that are unpopular and that create a flap. That's great for his support within the strong conservative base of the Republican Party. His political challenge is how to grow his vote, both within the Republican Party to people who want to hear about other issues, but also in the general election. Independent voters, what do they hear about? Conservatives like the fact that Rick Santorum makes a strong break with Barack Obama. But what do independents want to hear about? And when they hear that conversation, they may think, gosh, this is a lot of change in a world that's already moving fast. I'm not sure about him as a general election candidate.
Todd Spangler, how's this going to play out there in Michigan? What is your newspaper?
Well, I think what John said is dead on, because frankly, I think that a lot of moderate voters, somewhat conservative voters, who are the natural constituency for Governor Romney, are kind of not playing in the Republican field. I think they're not sure they want to be part of this primary, which ends up hurting him in Michigan, helping Santorum in Michigan, but hurting Romney.
You know, it's interesting. I was in Michigan this week at a Mitt Romney event in western Michigan. It's near Grand Rapids, very conservative part of the state. The first two people I talked to in the crowd told me that they'd been thinking about Romney, but that now they were leaning toward Rick Santorum. And those people brought up exactly these kinds of issues. You know, the contraception decision, the gay marriage decision. I mean, they feel that Rick Santorum is a very clear voice on these issues. Now, these same issues could though, be a problem in a general election.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Nobody has accused Rick Santorum of not being a conservative. Romney is having such a hard time making the case that he really is a conservative, whether he is or not. They don't make that case about Rick Santorum. I know, Nora, the White House took particular offense at what Santorum said yesterday about the president on the religion thing. I think Robert Gibbs, who's a senior advisor, said it was a new low, I believe he said.
Right, once again, is because Rick Santorum was questioning his theology, of course, and theology is the study of religion, so it suggests that Santorum was talking and suggesting that the president's not a Christian. He sort of disavowed that today. But look, Rick Santorum has won 4 states. Mitt Romney has run 3 states. Rick Santorum is arguably the front runner at this point. But the Obama campaign is not switching their focus. There, of course, would be political malpractice, in their words, not to look at Rick Santorum and study his record. But they still think at the end of the day, Mitt Romney will eke this thing out. And you notice the Obama team is not attacking Rick Santorum. Why? Once again, I feel like we say this often, is because they want Rick Santorum to continue to stay strong and watch this primary last for several more months as the president holds back, does official events, raises money, and also focuses on the economy. And we saw something change this last week in our own CBS News, New York Times poll, the president hitting 50% in his approval ratings for the first time, also in head-to-head matchups, defeating all of the 4 potential Republican challengers. So the president may have a little bit of his mojo back, and quite frankly, as the Republicans are distracted on social issues right now and not focusing on the president's economic record, that may still give the president some more breathing room for a short time.
You know, I'm not one of those that's is saying Newt Gingrich is dead. I've already said he's dead twice. Twice he has risen from the dead, and he now has a new infusion of money, I guess, John. So I'm not sure it's a 2-man race yet. It might be, but I'm not sure it is.
It's not. And the best thing that can happen to Newt Gingrich's campaign is that we can declare it's dead. It comes back right after that happens. What we've seen, though, in the polls is that those conservative voters who loved what Newt Gingrich was saying, they love what Rick Santorum was saying today on your show. And so that's why the votes are slipping away from Gingrich. Gingrich also in Michigan, where we're all paying attention because it's a race that is a fairer race. If Romney doesn't do well, he can't say, well, this had peculiarities about this state. To the extent the peculiarities of that state help anyone, it's Mitt Romney. Gingrich sort of isn't in that picture, so he's got to wait all the way to Super Tuesday. That's a long wait, where some of those southern states might be more favorable to him. But he does have a debate coming up on Wednesday, and that's where he's done well.
Scott, let me ask you this. This whole business of the bailout, I mean, it seems to me the bailout worked. You know, this was started by George Bush. He said last week in a speech, if I had to do it again, I'd do it again. People are working. General Motors made this record profit, and yet both Romney and Santorum have gone out there and come out against the bailout. Is that going to sell out there?
It's going to sell in a Republican primary the way it looks right now, because there's a lot of anti-bailout feeling there and around the country.
You're
right
Todd,
now.
not Scott.
Indeed.
I'm sorry.
It's fine, but it does hurt him in the general. And quite frankly, Michigan's gone for a Democratic president in the general since 1988. It's probably not going to change this time with all the Republican candidates, Romney included, saying the bailout was a mistake.
Where do you think this race is going, Karen? I mean, I, as a reporter, am hoping, of course, that it goes all the way to the convention, because we hadn't had one like that, and it'll be so much fun to cover. But I say that as a joke. Where do you see this going? It's going to go on for a while, it looks like.
It is going to go on for a while, and the Republicans will tell you that's not necessarily a bad thing. They say they set up their calendar so that it worked this way, the way the delegates are apportioned would work this way. And they point out that 4 years ago that a long primary battle actually strengthened Barack Obama for the general election. But what was different about 4 years ago was the tone of the race. And I don't recall Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama making the kind of very intense personal attacks on each other that we're hearing from the Republicans, and more importantly from the Republican super PACs, who are just carpet bombing the opposition.
Right up against the clock, Norah, what does the president do next?
Well, the president's campaign is sort of sitting and waiting to when they're going to launch their first official campaign swing. He's already behind essentially when George W. Bush and President Clinton launched their first official campaign. They keep stockpiling cash and focusing on Mitt Romney. And I think the president sees that this laser-like focus on talking about his jobs agenda has benefited them for the near term.
All right.